Please call for roll call.
Will Harris,
I'm here.
Steph Carey,
Here.
Bob Wilkerson,
Here.
Mike Hill,
Here.
Randy Lewis. Not here,
He's excused.
he is excused. Brad Albert
Yep.
and Joel Galbraith.
Here. All right, we have 6 to the 7, therefore we have a quorum. We have meeting minutes from the 24th February. We don't have meeting minutes from the 3rd of March. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that will be scratched off the agenda. The February 24th regular meeting minutes have, it's fine, gentlemen, have an opportunity to review those.
Yes, Chair, suggest to change the call the meeting in order to Harris and not Wilkerson at that meeting. There, one right after that.
Isn't that where we went to the elections?
No, this is February.
Previously.
Was it well voted in by then? Serving by then, the 24th.
Get in there, hold on.
Line 1, or first item.
Yes, I have the wrong person there. I will change that.
The only other thing I saw was, I think on the 3rd page, that's it, begins rural nature, environment, element. First line there, where's the, we're off, it's not, it's probably off. Not, I don't mean to stop right there, except so I'm saying in the phrase, instead of saying, that was probably went off the checklist. But just type it.
Got it.
And with that, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Minutes from 24th February are approved. 3 March, you will see at a future date. Any changes to the agenda? That? Any changes to the agenda? No. I have a couple I would like to make before. I would like to, we'd like to add a discussion at the end of the meeting regarding meeting frequency and duration. 10-15 minute discussion on that. And on the housing element, we have 60 minutes. We would like to put that 60 minutes specifically against PAC discussion. I don't know how much, I don't know the length of staff presentation or in particular public comment that we have a great representation of the public here, so I don't want to cut our discussion short. And I also don't want to at all cut the public comment short. So if folks are okay with that, we put 60 minutes for the PAC discussion, maybe 3, 4. And so I don't know the public meeting frequency and duration. Meeting frequency and duration under other.
One of the, a quick briefing of the PAC on our meeting with Park County.
I'll cover that under committee stuff.
Okay. I will approve the amended. I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approved as amended.
So, just letting you know, I can hear you because I have microphones, but in person it is kind of quiet, so if you could please speak up because the room is very large.
Oh, this okay, no, this ought to be really fun then, because I thought I was talking loud already, so I'll talk louder. All right, no, and thank you, Mariah, for the feedback, and certainly if anyone in the audience, if you can't hear us, particularly, and I'm looking at the individuals in the far back corner, just raise your hand and get our attention, and if you will, request we speak louder and we'll figure it out. Whether we come closer or just speak louder, we'll figure it out as we go, as we're in this new venue. Right, oh, those are microphones. Yeah. It did turn it on, but it only works for the recording, it doesn't speak a little. Oh, really? All right, yeah, okay, so who can do this? We've done the agenda, item 1D, conflict of interest. Do any of the commissioners have any conflict of interest over the topics being discussed tonight on the agenda?
No, none.
Hearing none, we'll move forward. Next meeting is on 31 March. That is a special meeting. Staff will discuss what will be covered at that meeting. And then following that, our next regular meeting is on 21 April. Moving on to committee staff updates. Marissa?
I don't, I'll give some updates on the schedule, when I start my presentation, but I don't have anything other than that until I start.
Okay. So with that, couple items from my side. One, this for the board members, I sent personal handwritten thank yous to Kathleen Wingard and to Laura Hodgkin for their presentation on housing and climate change back on the 3rd of March. So they should have those. At the 24 February PAC meeting, there was a statement made that Mason County is the fastest growing county. And I'm not logged in yet. I will send the file to Mariah and she can forward it out to the PAC members and make it available for the public. But according to the Washington State Office of Financial Management, OFM, Mason County is actually the 25th fastest growing county out of 39 for the time period of April 2014 to April 2024. Now, Washington overall grew by about 15.3% during that time period. Mason County grew at 8.8% during that same time period. So just wanted to clarify, at least a reference as to where we are in the relative growth of counties in the state. The vice chair and I will be find Mr. Carey. We met with the county administrator, Mark Neary, on February 28th. And that was, as we discussed at the last meeting, we were there to get an update on where the PAC recommendations regarding the capital improvements plan are with regards to being implemented for the 2026 to the 2031 SIP program. The county administrator confirmed that the PAC recommendations have been distributed to all the county departments. He also stated that some departments that he feels will need contracted services to be able to accomplish those due to the limited staff that they have available. We did not discuss the likelihood of contractor support. But our recommendations were distributed. They are out there and we're going from there. Just a follow up for everyone in the room. If you didn't see the brief this morning for the Board of County Commissioners, I would ask you to go take a look at it. Tanya Frazier, the executive director of Crossroads Housing, gave a presentation. And if you, the time period, it starts at 1 hour and 23 minutes into the recording. It ends at 2 hours and 2 minutes. It's a very good discussion. He goes through a slide deck. He focuses on what Crossroads does in collaboration and coordination with many other nonprofits, specifically dealing with some of our homeless community. And what I found most interesting is she talked very specifically to temporary emergency housing and transitional housing, which will be a topic part of our discussion later this evening. He also laid out very nicely a lot of the other issues out there. Housing is one of many things, and I just thought very well tied a lot of stuff together. And while many of the things are off the PAC, it is not within the PAC scope to address, it might be interesting just as a citizen to be aware of. He did state, one of the commissioners at the end asked, what's your number one issue? What's your number one need? Hands down. My number one need is housing. We are, and basically her statement, I loved it. We are going to grow by force or we will grow by design. It's up to us how we choose to go about that. So, you also made a comment, and Marissa and Mariah, we might want to dig into this. You made a comment about being disabled as a potential document barrier. And given that's one of the specific elements of the state, I just don't know. But I took that as a note. All right, yeah, same thing. It was today's brief, March 17th, 1 hour and 23 minutes in, 2 hours and 2 minutes in. That's all I have. Yeah, you have anything you want to add? It's
No, except that, you know, the capital facilities this year will not be a lot different. Very minor changes in any, so. But I did provide Mark Nerney a copy of the capital facilities guide from comment for capital facilities planning. So he did receive that shortly after our meeting, a couple days later. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Next, we have public comment. This is public comment for items not on tonight's agenda. So if you have something not on tonight's agenda that you would like to talk about, we can do that. I would like to start in the Zoom room. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to discuss whatever their topic is. Is there anyone in the Zoom room that has a public comment for an item not on the agenda this evening? Seeing none, is there anyone in the room here that has a public comment on an item not on the agenda this evening? Yes, sir. Mr. Sudi.
Yeah, good evening.
Please, please walk up over towards Mariah.
Good evening, PAC, members of the community. Kevin Chu with Mason County Economic Development Council. Just quick word of thanks on the CIP efforts that you're putting in. That capital facilities plan is critical to dealing with all of the issues that we have in front of us, whether they be housing, maybe in particular, but other types of economic activity that we need to see in the community in order to support and grow jobs within Mason County. And so just encourage you to continue to, share your support for getting those projects funded and completed in a timely manner. And so you can always count on the EDC to be a partner in that work. We want to see those projects happen. We think infrastructure is good for the community, and it's particularly good for the county as well, as it helps stabilize those utility rates for users and brings, hopefully new opportunities into the community as well. So just wanted to say a word of thanks on your efforts on the CIP.
Thank you, Mr. Sudi. Anyone? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Kirsty. I just wanted to say thank you for facilitating a larger space and allowing for more public participation and encouraging more public participation.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Just speak loudly. You're gonna feel like you're shouting. Don't worry about it.
I'm Anderson Porter. I live in Lincoln Crest neighborhood. I just wanted to say, bouncing off of what Christy said, it would kind of be nice to have like a podium up here so that we could have more area to do. That's all I want.
All right, thank you. Exactly.
Jacob, correctly, Arcadia. I'd just like to say that we have completed the survey. And we have information if you want to see it. If you want to see the results, you can come talk to us and we can give you some results.
Thank you, Mr. Ackley. just for everyone in the room, Mason County Climate Justice did forward to staff about three and a half hours ago, preliminary 8-page report from their affordable housing survey. Again, I comment preliminary, and Ms. Gail, I'm sure will comment later on. And the PAC received it 20 minutes after staff received it. No, the PAC has not read it. So if you're, we're not there yet. Now, I've scanned it, and that's about all I've got. Anyone else in the room with a public comment? Seeing none, we will move forward. Okay, so that closes public comment. We'll move on to our work session. And this evening, we're talking chapter 4, the housing element. With that, we'll turn it over to staff. And Marissa, it's going to seem like you're screaming. Just be loud.
I will
Or
try,
step
I will
forward or
try.
whatever.
Okay, 1 second here, let me pull this up. Okay. So today, like Commissioner Harris mentioned, we are looking at chapter 4, the housing chapter. The schedule, the tentative schedule going forward is March 31st will be the continuation of the land use element. We previously looked at the policies for land use. Then we will be reviewing the economic development chapter as well. We heard that the first meeting on that particular topic was in January. Then April 14th, this is where the schedule gets different than what was mentioned earlier. So we have meetings every other week. April 14th would be the capital facilities and utilities, the first meeting on that particular chapter. And I am saving a slot just in case we re-review another element. So right now it's capital facilities and utilities on April 14th. Then April 28th is going to be transportation, and then it's going to be the first look at work on the climate resiliency and hazard mitigation chapter, and that's basically going to be the progress to date of what the CPAT has gotten through to that point. And then May 19th, and this one I know looks scary to people, but remember this is just a draft for the purposes of the grant. We're going to have additional meetings to address any issues in the chapters that haven't been resolved. So on May 19th, it's going to be the draft 11 climate resilience and hazard mitigation, and then a full draft of the content. And, okay,
Can we
so
go back? Sorry, go ahead. Last slide.
So chapter 4, housing. Progress to date. So back in August of last year, the draft housing needs assessment was presented to the PAC at a work session. And then in October of last year, we brought back, well, FCS brought back a housing scenario that was requested and recommended by county and city staff to the PAC to look at. The PAC took action on that scenario review at that October meeting. And then in between that time, FCS was gathering additional data from the county and the city. The HNA was pre-reviewed by the Department of Commerce, which completely grateful for. It gives us kind of a pre-check on if we're meeting the minimum requirements that the state has laid out. And then we had Commerce present on the minimum requirements for the housing element, and that's following up that Will Harris was talking about. Laura Hodgson came and presented, well, it was a Zoom presentation, but she presented on the minimum requirements for the housing element. And then this is our first meeting on an actual draft of the housing chapter. Just to reiterate, we chose a population projection, and that was the medium forecasted projection. And you'll see that is at 82,932. And then if we want to look at it from a different perspective, we have the historical from 2000. So the change from 2000 is every 5 years, we can see that graph going up, and then here's that medium projection from 2020 to 2045, right here. This is the low and this is the high, and then the medium was chosen for this period. Housing scenario D that I mentioned, PAC took action on that in October of last year. And when FCS presented that information, they presented it over for the housing needs from 2024 to 2045. And that's at 7,401. So that's that total number of housing need, and that's for both the city of South Shelton and the UGA and the rural county. And then, oh, I'm sorry, total housing, this should be over here. It's 7,037. This is the population increase right here. It should be over here. So it should be 7,037. And that's method D. And then that's from 2024 to 2045. Now the housing element itself, the state requires us to include the number of housing needed for the period of 2020 to 2045. So you'll see a different number within the housing element itself, but that's not minusing the housing that we've acquired between 2020 and 2024. So just wanted to point that out because you'll see two different numbers, but the state requires us to show the housing required between 2020 and 2045. In progress right now, the data from the city is still required to finish the HNA. So SCJ is working with FCS to get that information from the city. They might have already done it, but I haven't gotten any update currently. Staff did an initial review on the HNA and the housing element and believe it meets the GMA checklist requirements. But there are some following areas that need clarification, and I will let people know that I received the housing elements and I had to turn it around really fast. So there's no recommendations from staff on any of the policies in here. We didn't get time to give a response from staff's perspective. Just wanting to get it out to you as fast as I could after getting it. There was a very quick turnaround. There are a couple of things that I do think need some clarification. We are still waiting for the land capacity analysis, and that will actually be coming at the next meeting on March 31st. We'll be looking at the land use element, and so it's appropriate that we're also looking at land capacity analysis as well. And that information will be transferred over to the housing element. More discussion regarding housing types that haven't previously been mentioned in the comp plan. So there's transitional housing, permanent supportive housing, emergency housing. The current draft doesn't have much of a discussion on any of that right now. And then more discussion regarding displacement risk mapping indicators and regarding policies that help to prevent disparate impacts and exclusion, as well as the proposed policy. So I do believe there could be a better summary in the narrative section about those particular topics, especially because they're new. And that for people who aren't used to those topics too, I think it needs a better explanation for the public in general. And then review of the GMA checklist. Our requirement. So requirement 1, goals, policies, and objectives for the preservation, improvement, and development of housing. There's 3 goals within the current chapter. One that has to do with housing affordability. There's 19 policies, some of them existing and some of them proposed. There's goal 2, which is development standards. 11 policies currently. Again, some of them existing, some of them proposed. And then goal 3, which is housing for all, and there's 9 policies under that. The second requirement is consideration of duplexes, triplexes, and townhomes within a UGA. There was an addition of policy 1.18, which talks about that, as well as those housing types are already allowed within the Allen and Belford UGA. Requirement 3, consideration of housing locations in relation to employment locations and the role of ADUs. There was the addition of policy 1.18 and 2.11 and an existing policy 2.7. And I'm just indicating where our consultant is addressing that issue, or maybe there were policies in the existing chapter that may talk about those requirements. So doesn't mean that people can't propose more or there can't be revisions. I'm just noting where they are making, they're meeting the minimum requirement. Then requirement 4 was to provide an inventory and analysis of existing and projected housing needs over the planning period, and that is by income band. And that information is in the housing needs assessment, and the housing needs assessment is incorporated currently as an appendix to the housing chapter. On requirement 5, identification of the capacity of land for housing types listed in RCW. Currently, SCJ is developing a land capacity analysis for the land use element, and then we will also incorporate that information into the housing chapter. Requirement 6, adequate provisions for existing and projected housing needs for all economic segments of the community. So where is housing production not meeting local housing? So the HNA has a rental gap analysis that talks about where we are lacking units that are affordable in a certain AMI. Barriers within control of local government. So these are going to be in your policies. And there are several policies that talk about these barriers and how they might be overcome. There's things that, for instance, fair and equal opportunity, job creation, creative design allowances, diversity and allowed residential types, actively seeking state and federal funding, coordination with the city regarding policy and programs, fee waivers and exemptions. There's a whole long list of them. If you've read through the draft, you'll see that there are quite a few. Then, so we have requirement 7 and 8 and 9, and document areas of risk of displacement. The housing needs analysis has a review of data to determine if there are disparate impacts, exclusion, or displacement. And then requirement 8, which is connected to that topic, is review that any housing element policies and regulations, see if they have led to disparate impacts or exclusion. And that information also is in the housing needs analysis and housing element. Though, as I mentioned earlier, I think there could be a better explanation of the mapping and any policies that may exist. And that have been proposed that have to do that with that particular requirement. And then at the end, inclusion of policies to address. And if we begin to undo RDI, displacement, and exclusion. And then the consultant did include mapping from the Department of Commerce regarding displacement risk. And you'll see the red is the highest risk, and Commerce is mapping that in the Shelton and UGA area, also within some of the southern area of the county as well. Right now, there is a little bit of discussion from FCS group on the displacement risk map, but it mainly deals with the city of Shelton. It doesn't so much talk about the rest of the county. I will note that for the rural area of the county, for the rural lands, policy and development regulations are identical through the county. So up here, you have the same development regulations, if you want to build a single family house as down here. Or over here, so those are the same. And other than that, I am done sharing and I'm gonna turn it over to our chair.
Hey, this is an opportunity, so PAC members, do you have questions for staff based on what was just presented? I'd like to start, Marissa, we could go back to the calendar slides or that arrow going across the those dates. And big screen, bad eyes. So you will see a change up here and PAC members, this is a question, can we as PAC support this? So typically we would meet on the third Monday of the month, which would be 21 April. And you don't see a 21 April up there. Instead, staff is proposing we meet every other week through April and into May. And there might be a 3-week gap there in the last one to be able to support this. My question to you is this doable?
Okay. Schedule wise, okay.
Yeah, no.
I may be in Alabama on the April 28th.
We still should be able to have a forum though, and obviously Zoom if you want to. I'm not asking you to, you're sounds like this is supportable and so we got that checked. I would just ask again, any heads up on that draft chapter 11 would really be helpful. We have had questions on this side of the table basically for a year at this point, and it looks like our first real opportunity to discuss the draft chapter is the same time we have to sort of look at a draft full element and provide some advice to the Board of Commissioners. We might need a little bit of time to pull all that in. So if there's, the earlier we can get it, the better. I understand it's a work in development. Anything else in calendar guys? No one's saying no. And can you send these slides out afterwards? Great. So Brad, we'll get the slide back. See. Okay, let's go to housing. Questions for staff on housing?
One question was answered, why the difference on the quantity of structures. On one chart being 8,000 and the other one being 7,000, so that was answered. As far as trying to, this is kind of an observation, it's trying to work through this material with having. It would be nice if we keep a common denominator between having City of Shelton, the UGAs, and the rural kind of work their way the same way through all the different processes we're working through. Because at times one of the charts, it was only counting the City of Shelton, and then the other one was rural and then included UGAs. And that I'll quote in a minute. All I'm saying is when we work down through these different numbers and different tables, it would be nice to have the same, I call it denominator, but the same arrangement. City, UGA, this the county UGAs, and then the rural and some format. Yeah, similar format. Because it gets very complicated when you're trying to have one that's breaking out 3 ways and another is breaking out 2 ways. Like in housing quantities and structural quantities and things of that nature. Thank you.
along that lines. That's not the only area with the comp plan where we have a breakout, and we have a different breakout, and we have another breakout. I think, the topic I'm thinking of is race, where we have different breakouts, where we combine some in some cases, we break them out in others. There's just a lack of consistency. Right? Any questions? Staff? Okay. I got just a couple,
Wait, you mean question about this Word document?
Yes.
Yes.
yes, do you have any, yeah, so this is not for the time, this is the time simply to say, staff, do you have a question on what Marissa presented with
Oh.
regards to that document? And if you got a specific question on the document, I think that's fair game, okay? As far as the discussion of the PAC, we'll have that after public comment. But if you just have a sort of.
My only question about the housing attachment C was that all of the tables are 2022. They're already 3 years out of date. And I guess, I'd ask SCJ to update those tables.
So those tables. So FCS is the consultant that gathered the information. Put in the housing needs assessment and in the housing chapter. So they gather that.
Excuse me?
FCS is the sub-consultant that gathered that information for the housing chapter. So they gathered it back in end of 2023, beginning of 2024. So they are gathering the information at the time of drafting. And at the time of drafting, that was the information that was finalized.
So we're not gonna get updated.
So,
Okay.
you know, when you have someone do work for you, it's not a continuous, I mean, it's not their
Best
contract.
information available at this time.
And the references to all of those tables, all of the data were very vague. I can't tell. How do we know where the data came from? There are certain 5-letter acronyms starting with B. I went through and edited them. Added some comments to the Word document. And, I mean,
So if you are unsure of where that source or what that source is, you can always, I mean, you can add that to comments
okay,
on the draft. And I can follow up with the
I
consultant,
mean,
or else I can try to provide you if you have a specific one, so.
all of them were so vague. They're not telling exactly where they came from. The information is not there. On the 9 tables. They say from one says from OPM, Officer of Personnel Management, I guess. I thought SCJ did it because what's Barker's first name? Or
She drafted the housing element, but she took a lot of the data from the work that FCS group
Okay.
provided.
And FCS, one of my questions was, who is FCS?
I believe
Okay.
they're a subcontractor to
Yeah.
SCJ supporting them in
I mean-
housing in particular, and I think in other areas. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Just that they're supporting only in the housing.
Only housing.
The bottom line, if I don't see sources referenced well, then I don't trust the data.
Well, okay,
And we shouldn't either.
so comment on which ones that you weren't sure of, and then maybe we can
I guess I'll send
specify.
the Word document with my edits in them,
Yeah.
my comments,
That works.
all of them.
Anything else, Brad?
No,
I'll throw a couple out there. So on the displacement, if we go to the displacement map for a minute,
Okay, give me a second.
yeah, my real question is, and what I'm looking to is there going to sort of be a root cause like analysis When I look at the maps, we see I'll call it a hot spot on Shelton. You see a hot spot with one of our tribes. We see a hot spot up to the north. That's that brighter orange right on the border with Kitsap. And in preparation for this meeting, I did meet with staff at their request, just so we can coordinate the activities that we're doing here, not discussing what we're doing here. But we did, I said, well, what's the issue here? Because when I read it, the issue seems to be race. And my question is, or nationality, actually, not nationality, race. And my question is that really the issue? Or is it, education? Is it English as a second language? Is it, it's a sensitive topic, but it's a very real topic. I know our sheriff deals with, is it nationality? Okay. And why is displacement, is it an economic factor? Well, I will tell you, in my little area where I live in Lakeland Village, displacement is real. We've had one family move out, and I've met two others where the gentleman in his 70s went back to work because economically they cannot maintain their home. And therefore displacement economically is a factor. What I'm really looking for SCJ to do is provide us the reason why. If it's as simple as it's simply a race card, I'm going to struggle with what I do with that. How do I, as a PAC member, provide any ideas to my fellow members where we can provide advice? But if we have that deeper level of understanding of, hey, someone's only been here a few years, they don't understand English, I can do something about that. I can make a recommendation that can help and support those people. And I think, I'm just saying this now because I think that's going to be a heavier lift than simply taking the Department of Commerce map and saying, here it is. But I think that's what we need.
Well, wouldn't you be asking the DOC what criteria they use to develop this map and their physical geographical areas? They come up with a map, they had to have something to come up with a color code and the location of the thingies.
Anyway, that's what I'm looking for, Marissa, so that you can pass on this and Jerry. Didn't see a discussion on local barriers, construction, and I am, as everyone, if you're new to PAC meeting, one of my drivers in all of this is how do we bring down the cost of homes? What is driving the cost to where we can build more with less and help our people? And I would really be interested to see what are the barriers. And I very much believe the fiscal piece is one of them. And that comes in many spectrums. I'm looking to see what they have there. We talk displacement risks. And review the housing policies and regulations. Is there anything out there that is particularly excluding people based on factors that should simply not be considered? My race, my gender, my education, my whatever, my religion, there's a host of them. That's all I know. Anything else, PAC members? Nope. All right, let's open it up for public comment on housing. 3 minutes. I see Mr. Ackley's already standing, so we'll let him go first. And you got timers going there?
Like you said, my name is Jacob Ackley. I live in Arcadia, just off of Shelton. Last Tuesday, I went to a City of Shelton comp plan meeting of the City of Shelton committee. While I was there, the people were discussing making mixed use neighborhoods in Shelton. And I think this is a great idea as it encourages business and people to move here. One, businesses will set up shop right next to it, or right in mixed use neighborhoods to hit the market because people don't always want to drive everywhere. So a lot of people more often go to these businesses because they can walk. And while we have it in Shelton, I think this would actually be good in Belfair, Allen, UGA areas. As this could encourage people in these areas to go shopping more, increase business, or just use their car less, which will mean less cars on the road and less traffic.
Thank you, Mr. Anthony. McMahon.
I'm really would like to advocate for tiny houses.
Who are you?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Rebecca Holbrook. I live
Thank you.
at Lake Cushman in a tiny house. And I have built tiny houses and helped people to get them. There are a lot of organizations now that are making houses that are affordable so that young people and people on fixed incomes can afford to actually own their house and not be so much at the whims of, renters or rental landlords. You can actually own your house and a quality Washington State certified tiny houses. So if you want any information about sources for that, so that is out there. There's the Operation Tiny Homes and the Tiny House Alliance who are trying to help people do this and create villages. So the problem is there aren't enough places to put them. So having ADUs is wonderful. I don't know if that's allowed all over the county, but tiny house communities are something I think we really need to look at. But I'm taking a lot of the old RV parks and turning them into that. But there are organizations that teach how to start tiny house communities. So they're quality homes people can actually own. And if we can make it more accessible for people who live here, maybe people, especially young people, won't have to leave to be able to afford to live in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Holbrook. Yes, sir. You're next.
Hello, my name is Alan Ramirez. I live in the downtown Shelton area. But I say, I think one of the main focuses of the PAC for their suggestions should be to really reduce the sprawl. Because I think it's not the only problem we have, but I think it's one of the biggest that we have here in Mason County. Is that you'll have these small sort of population centers, you have your Belfairs, you have your Sheltons, the only actual city in Mason County. But then you just have all these other houses all over the place. So transportation for, say, like the Mason Transit Authority, it's really hard for them to get people places because everything is just so far away from each other. So I think if the PAC really tried to focus on reducing sprawl in the comp plan, it would reduce the cost of transportation for not just like people in general, not having to drive everywhere, because places would be more local, as Jacob Ackley said, would encourage more businesses around population centers. But it would also make it so that places like the Mason Transit Authority would be able to more efficiently move people around, which would also reduce greenhouse emissions, which I think is maybe not, I don't remember if it was something that was required by the PAC, but it would definitely be nice because that would, make our air a little bit nicer. And it would also increase the water quality because the way that it works is that carbon goes into the water, gets absorbed into it, turns to carbonic acid, makes it harder for the shellfish that we grow here to be able to grow without dying. And as that thing has been stated before, shellfish aquaculture is a huge, massive part of Mason County. We're pretty reliant on that. Would also just overall help out the economy because if we have more densely populated areas, people will be able to just like walk down to say a farmer's market like the one we have here in Shelton. And who knows, maybe we'll have more than just one city here. We'll be a booming county with a whole lot of business, a whole lot of oysters. Maybe even a Costco. Something.
The scale you're next.
Hello, I'm Doug Peterson. I'm pastor at Faith Lutheran Church. Data is hard to come by. I can simply say from personal experience, we see dozens of folks coming through my office every month in need of resources, assistance. So probably I've talked to a couple, 300 people over the last couple of years who are in this community. And the number one issue that I hear time and time again is housing. So figuring out ways to do affordable housing. I guess my other relationship is that Faith Lutheran Church has been one of the founding partners of Community Lifeline. And for decades, when Shelton was a small town, you could kind of have a couple of churches get together and make sure there's an extra soup kitchen or something like that. Affordable, safe housing is something that can't be taken care of by a small faith-based nonprofit for Mason County. It is absolutely fundamentally the duty, it is a public and civic duty to create ways to make sure that safe, affordable housing can be made available to people. And thank you, gentlemen, for your work.
Thank you, Patrick Peterson. Ms. Gale?
My name is Julianne Gale. I live just outside Belfair. And I just wanted to respond to some of the PAC member comments first. Commissioner Carlberg, I hear you about wanting more up-to-date and specific source data. We presented a presentation that had more up-to-date data. Oh yeah, please pass this up, thank you. That had more up-to-date data and was very specifically sourced, and we would be happy to have that presentation be one of the appendices in the housing element. In addition to the question on the methodology of the displacement map, the Department of Commerce has a whole webinar up on their website describing the methodology of the displacement map, so you can find that. And then the purpose of why I came out here today is to share an update on the affordable housing survey that Mason County Climate Justice and our youth program, Cedar Stewards of Mason County, put together. Tristan, thank you so much, just passed out, and you all got in your email. The preliminary results will have a much more detailed and nuanced methodology, explanation, and analysis later, but I just want to pull out a few key pieces. We hear over and over that Mason County is a commuter housing market, but that's not what came to be true when we actually did our survey. At the time of this analysis, 785 people had completed the survey. And the number one reason that people live in Mason County or want to live in Mason County is that their family and friends live here. And the second and third most popular reasons to live here are appreciations of the rural and small community feel and the beauty of our shared home. In fact, people are more likely to live in Mason County because they work here than they are to live here because they think it's more affordable than the surrounding area or because it's in close proximity to bigger cities. And so I think as we're visioning ahead with the 20-year comp plan and we're visioning ahead with what we want for housing, we really need to keep in mind that people love this place, they love the people here, and that's why we live here. And the decisions we make have to be responsive to the love and care and the communities that already exist here. I also wanted to bring forward the section on page 5, which is about housing solutions. We listed 26 potential housing solutions, and we've already heard public comment about even more housing solutions than that. But I just want to say that even with all the problems that people face with housing, people are really eager to see solutions. And of all 26 housing solutions that we proposed, the majority of respondents said, I support and want to see more of that solution. Every single solution was popular. And so what do we do about that? Maybe the county can't implement all the solutions, but the comp plan is a place for making things possible. When you put something in the comp plan, it's more likely that you're able, it's more likely that you can get it funded. So just having the possibility of housing solutions makes it possible for the next 20 minutes. It's next 20 years. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Ms. Gale.
Hello, my name is Anderson Porter. I'm up here again. I am a part of the Shelton Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee. And regarding the survey that Mason County Climate Justice put out, whenever we had 766 people that participated within it, 92% agreed or strongly agreed that we need more affordable housing within Mason County. Also regarding the housing element, I would like to mention that on 4.3.1, it's more focused on people coming into Shelton, Mason County, rather than the people that live here and the people that are coming into Mason County. So I think that it should be changed to everyone rather than people that are coming into Mason County, because there are still unhoused people in Mason County. I would also like to mention on 4.2.2, that there are percentages on the permits. Sorry, there's numbers on the permits on that specific part of the housing element, but there's not specific hot zones on where those have been approved or how many has been approved within Mason County. So I think hot zones would be important to add so that we know where they're actually being done. Also, last thing, I wonder if we know if we have a housing shortage in Mason County currently. That's all.
Please repeat that last statement.
Do we know if we have a housing shortage in Mason County currently?
Thank you. That's what I thought I heard. I just want to make sure I heard that right. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Linda Thanks. I live south Mason County. I was reading this thing here that we just saw on the screen for housing on C, and it says consideration of housing locations in relation to employment location and the role of ADUs. I hate to be a bummer, but I'm all about sewage. And ADUs are accessory dwelling units. And they're often, somebody converts a garage into a sink and a toilet, and I think that the county may not have, I don't know, probably doesn't have sufficient regulation and enforcement to oversee each one of these. And when you put this out into the rural areas and encourage that, you are discouraging our shellfish industry from thriving, because when you have more families living on where one house is supposed to be with its septic design, and we have their other cars, and there's more traffic, and all those things leach down the driveway onto our shorelines. And I know Alan likes oysters. You want to protect our shellfish industry. So, and in growth management, in the original growth management plan, first goal was to encourage building in the urban environment where there's big old student plant, there's all the roads, there's the buses, there's schools, not out in the rural areas. So discouraging sprawl was one of the major goals of doing this whole plan.
Thank you, Ms. Lynch. And I'm just gonna step in here and make an observation from my perspective. As I've listened to some of the comments this evening, in my mind, I will leave it solely in my mind, some of them sort of disagree with each other, you know. There are comments of, you know, we want to reduce sprawl, but we want, you know, possibly tiny home villages. And please, any speaker, if I am misquoting you, that is my problem, and I will work on it. Obviously, we don't have a time to interact in here. That's not the purpose of public comment. but ultimately trying to balance all these elements. Again, we are an advisory board. The Board of Commissioners gets to ultimately review and approve it. Again, I'm very grateful that Commissioner Tarswell is in the room again. So he is showing a lot of interest. This is his third or fourth meeting where he's taking time out from his lovely wife to be here with us. And Commissioner Tarswell, I really appreciate you being here and taking the time to talk to people after meetings. But yeah, sometimes it's interesting listening to these because the balance would be interesting in the end. All right. Any, I thought I saw another hand up. Yes, ma'am. Yep, you're it.
Hello, Michael Citrot speaking from Belfair, Washington. Can you hear?
Yes, we can, Michael. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So I previously had spoken about being a teacher in the North Mason School District and also in the Grapeview School District. And I haven't really heard too much about the impacts of lack of permanent housing on students. And it had come to my attention last week when I was teaching that a student's family was struggling financially. And because of that, their ability to fully engage in school had been diminished. And it was noted by some of their teachers. And when they asked the student, he was very hesitant, but then he finally said, yes, my family is really struggling and it's affecting me. And I just want to bring to our attention that we don't hear from students very often. The wonderful high school students being an exception who are involved in this whole process. But please take into consideration that young children who wouldn't be filling out a survey are also affected. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Stiprop. And if you can see a picture of the room, we have great representation tonight of a number of students in here. Typically, these are all high school students, and in other meetings, they have that topic has been spoke to by some that may or may not be present here, but from very personal experiences. So, man, we'll finish up in the room, then we'll go into Zoom space for the rest of the comments. So back to the room.
Thank you. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Sherry Dysart. I live in rural Mason County on a small farm near Lake Isabel. And I'd like to do some comments tonight about the housing survey done by MCCJ and the Cosmic Youth. Who have done an amazing job of being engaged in this whole process. So I'd like you to please take note of page 2 of the document at some point. It's noting the shared values of housing in Mason County. So approximately 95% of the respondents agreed or strongly agree that everyone deserves a stable, safe place to live. Thinking after freedom. To quote the Washington Low Income Housing Alliance, a home is fundamental, like air to breathe and food to eat. Safe shelter is a fundamental human need. Ensuring that this need is met for each and every one of us is a collective responsibility. Unquote. The housing survey provides resident voices, that is, insights into real life, lived experiences, and possible solutions to housing challenges. Please save this work by including the housing survey report as an appendix on plan update. Hundreds of hours of work went in creating survey, administrating the survey, and analyzing the data to incorporate narrative. Treat it with respect it deserves. Thank you.
Thank you.
No food.
You ma'am, and then we'll hit Christina in the back. You got it. Right there.
You all like really here and like are trying to emphasize with us about our concerns with them. Housing issues that are right now. Did you hear a question?
Ryan, Marissa, can you give them a microphone so that we can hear?
No, there's no speaker. It's only for recording. Mics are only for recording. So, if I.
It's fine. What I was asking is if you truly like care and are trying to empathize with us about like the current housing issues that are occurring like right now.
This is a public comment period, not a question and answer period. And on this one question, I will simply say yes. Okay, I mean, we are taking a lot of our personal time to help our community and trying to find solutions to very hard problems. Housing, as we well know, as community members, all of us know, it's very difficult, very challenging issue. And it's not one that's local to Mason County. This is largely a nationwide, it's certainly a statewide issue. Look at the actions that Governor Ferguson has done. Simply, it is the second thing he signed, number 2502, was housing. Specifically, he charged every department in the state to look at what we do and how can we make housing easier to build, cheaper to build, and more effective to help our people. So this is, empathize might be too hard a word. I personally have not struggled over my life. I've been very blessed. But yes, I like to think we have awareness. Do we fully understand? Sometimes you've got to live it, and maybe I don't have that experience. But I certainly, we're working very hard to find real solutions that actually, a plan's one thing, building a home is a whole different thing. And ultimately is providing the home. In the end, what you're looking for, a set of keys to be safe, secure, to be with your family. So, while it's technically not question and answers, I'll violate my own rules and press on that. Thank you. Ms. Mueller.
Good evening. My name is Christina Muller-Shin. I live on Shelton Matlock Road. I've lived in the county for about 12 or 13 years and also lived in Belfair for about 6 years before moving here. I understand, I recognize what you're saying about balancing the difference of opinions of sprawl versus rural versus et cetera. And I struggle with that. I came here to live in a rural wooded area. I have 5 acres. It's beautiful. That's why I'm here. And I also do work with folks who have intense housing insecurity, and I'm burdened every day by what I see. I'll note that I am a county employee. I am not speaking as a county employee in any way, shape, or form. I'm speaking as a Mason County resident, but I can't, my words are informed by what I see, including my work. I do work with folks experiencing behavioral health challenges, people experiencing homelessness. I do a lot of collaboration work. We have an amazing community that has done incredibly creative solutions and have really worked with things. I love working in this and living in this community because
it's kind of small enough where we can almost find solutions and do things in ways that are way more effective than huge, big areas. So that's cool. But I also want to say regarding housing, and specifically, I forget the section 80E on the comp plan. I was kind of noting that there was a lack of information around long-term supportive housing, emergency shelters, et cetera. We have, people who have a lot of strategies and who are invigorated to kind of work on that. But I always am appreciative that I am not a case manager, because one of the hardest things to do as a case manager is help people who are desperate for help with housing, which is the #1 need, as everyone has said here, and there is nothing there. The capacity doesn't exist there. The amount of unlived in houses, so second houses, vacation homes, is kind of striking when we see how many people who are from here, these are folks who are lived, born, raised, who are doing it. Running out of time, I have way too many thoughts. I want to illustrate the story. I was able to purchase home here. I am a pretty well-educated person. I was working in the county, so I had secured housing, committed to being here. I was living in a renting shared housing in Belfair, was desperate to get out of living in shared household, wanted to get it. It was so hard to find a rental that it was easier for me as a single woman in her 30s to find a mortgage and purchase a house, because of the rental market was so inaccessible, the amount of income you had to have over, the applications, et cetera, the capacity, the availability, the dog breeding restrictions. This is a huge thing. Breed restrictions on rentals. This is an insurance thing, so probably not on your hands, but that was a big barrier. So we need more things for single adults and long-term supportive housing and emergency shelters. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Can you hold one, just give me 30 seconds to write a note before you start talking, please.
Let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready.
My name is Kirsty Rose. I'm a resident over by Lake Limerick. And I just would like to give a suggestion for some housing policy. Based on our housing survey, 90% of residents want lower permit fees for low-income people who want to build. And while it's true that the county has no control over the cost of lumber or building materials or developer fees, some of the largest hidden costs people don't realize are included are the permit fees, engineering fees, and other planning associated fees. And that's not even considering the cost of time. Every week spent waiting for permits or plans is a week spent paying 9 to 10% or more on a construction loan without even breaking ground. Multiple counties and cities in Washington, including Jefferson, Snohomish, Pierce, and Port Angeles, have developed sets of permit-ready building plans that are available for residents, builders, and developers to use to help reduce the burden of those costs. According to Port Angeles officials, these plans can reduce construction costs by 5 to 20%, and are available at no extra cost. They eliminate the need for additional engineering, and they greatly reduce permit wait times while reducing the labor needed by the county planning department. The cost to implement these plans doesn't have to be incurred by Mason County alone. Port Angeles was able to achieve these plans by utilizing funding from the Housing Action Plan from the Washington State Department of Commerce. And I believe it is within the PAC's scope to recommend policy to seek funding so that Mason can also develop similar plans. And also, I would like to say that I believe, along with 76% of our survey takers, that we need clarification in the housing policies to legally allow residents to live in tiny homes, RVs, or other homes on axles. Considering the amount of people that are in our county who already live this way, I think we should be protecting their right to live in these ways further than just not enforcing the current RCWs. Just because this administration doesn't enforce these current 60 to 90-day policies or whatever the number is right now, doesn't mean that future administrations won't come in and say, you can't live this way, and then many people will be homeless. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
I live in the Brockfield precinct, specifically Eagle Point Drive, and I was able to build my home with my husband almost 30 years ago. So we were able to build it stick by stick. What I wanted to point out today was in the survey that we received, which I just had a chance to look at quickly, was the need. 83% of those surveyed thought that the government supported affordable housing with rent based on percentage of income was supported, and this would be publicly owned, operated, and maintained by the regular government. So I thought that was a very interesting point to make, and maybe something we should be considering. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Well, my name is Dale Stargard. I go by Echo. I was a cattle rancher in Eastern Oregon for a very long time before moving to Mason County in 2019. And this is a rural county, but it's a gigantic metropolis to me. And moving up here and being exposed to so many new things and so many new problems and how bad things have gotten recently has spurred me to become more involved in my local politics, in my local community. And so I just wanted to advocate for mixed-use neighborhoods, more accessibility for tiny house communities, including tiny houses on axles, and for the development of multifamily housing, especially ones that are government funded, managed, or subsidized with rent based on percentage of income. Because a big problem with multi-housing units is private equity firms or private businesses that can jack up the rent and make people homeless. And that's something that we see in Washington a lot because we don't really have protections. And that's the way that in our local community, we have multifamily housing with those kinds of protections. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Michaela Porter. Can you guys hear me over there? Okay. I live in Hillcrest neighborhood in Shelton. And I just wanted to make a quick comment, basically seconding everything everyone else has said. We're all here because we love Mason County. We want Mason County to grow and to be amazing. I think there was an amazing comment at one of the past meetings about wanting to keep Mason County beautiful. One of the main reasons, sorry, your name tag's down. I don't know your name, but you over there said that one of the reasons people come to Mason County is because it's beautiful. We have a survey that says they're here for the beauty, but they're also here for community. We can do that by not just using the rural areas, but also using our city's areas. Mixed use housing, building more community, reducing sprawl. We can do tiny house neighborhoods within the city. We can also use some of our rural areas, but it's not either or. We can focus on both and still build Mason County to be better. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Porter. We're running out of people. Can't be too many more on that. There's no shooting. Zoom line here in a minute. Our head of our Economic Development Commission wants to speak to us. Or he's just going to speak to us as a citizen. Not sure yet.
One of the same thing. Good evening again, Kevin Chu, Mason County Economic Development Council. Yeah, definitely agree. There's been a lot of really good conversations tonight. Definitely hearing some things that are really kind of positive in terms of helping develop more housing in our community. I think having a focus on regulatory reform, permitting reform, and there's an interest, sounds like maybe an interesting coalition that could form out of this, where there's some overlap in trying to work on that as a potential solution would be a great thing. I'm not one to get into the weeds of the permitting and planning department, because it's not anymore. We have really smart and talented people who work in that department who can definitely engage and work on that particular issue. But being able to reduce or prioritize, I guess I should say, projects that are affordable in nature. So multifamily type projects that are in the urban growth areas or rural activity centers that help us meet our housing goals will be a critical step in solving the housing crisis that we have in Mason County. Again, I also mentioned in the general public comment about the importance of infrastructure development. That's, part of the goal of growth management is to drive development into these urban growth areas where you have access to municipal services. Part of the challenge that you run into in developing in the rural areas of the county on the scale that we need is that you just don't have access to the county utilities there that support a housing project, of any kind of size and scale. And so figuring out how to drive that kind of development into the urban growth areas is going to be critical because it's an issue that's going to be solved in large part based on density, where we're able to build on smaller lots to build up. I think the county has been doing some really positive things in that regard and changing some of the height restrictions in the urban growth areas and rural activity centers to allow for the development of properties to go upwards. More can probably be done in that regard, to help, just sort of incentivize through regulatory reform, those types of projects. I would also just kind of point out that the county also took a really, I think, positive step a couple of years ago with the city of Shelton in adopting a planned unit development code that has parity between the city and the county in the Shelton urban growth area. This allows for, for similar planning development codes and the sharing of utility infrastructure and things like that. So I like the track that the county's on in some regards as it comes to thinking creatively about how to improve our regulatory environment. We also need to have our nonprofit communities pitch in a little bit more and go after that critical state funding, develop permanent supportive housing projects, transitional housing projects, so that we really can say and mean that we have an all of the above approach to housing in our community. It's a critical economic development issue. It's a critical workforce development issue. And I just appreciate the work that the PAC has done.
Thank you, Mr. Freebie. Anyone else in the room? In Zoom land, do we have anyone that would like to make a public comment on the housing topic?
And I know you can't really see it there.
We have someone just identified.
Colleen.
Hi, I'm Colleen Carmichael. I'm the Executive Director of Shelton Veterans Village. And we want to offer some ways of examples to increase housing and reduce poverty and homelessness in our area. One is to apply for HUD grants through pathways to remove obstacles housing, which helps localities purchase land for affordable housing, streamline the building process, and add local staff to fast-track affordable housing proposals. Use more manufactured homes. They are built in factories and finished on site at a faster rate and less costly, minimum of 35% less than construction of homes. Increase wages. The wages needed to afford a one-bedroom apartment are $33 an hour. Jobs earning less than that are cashiers, retail clerks, fast food workers, home health care, cooks, nursing assistants, office clerks, waiters, customer service reps, laborers, and janitors. That's according to the Low Income Housing Institute. Increase rent subsidies. A fair market value study at approximately $75,000 will help increase rent subsidies to be in line with market rate rents and make larger units available for families. Bremerton Housing Authority successfully did that in Kitsap County. Another, tax only on undeveloped land and cut taxes on existing homes, also known as split rate tax models. They've been shown to increase high density housing. Reform zoning laws to encourage multifamily housing projects and eliminate parking minimums. Increase permanent supportive housing projects for chronically homeless. The Center on Budget and Policy showed that combining affordable housing with services saved an average of $6,000 per person per year in healthcare by reducing hospital stays 23%, emergency room visits 33%, and days in nursing homes by 42%. We invite you to come to Shelton Veterans Village and see for yourselves the impact of permanent supportive housing on the lives of those we serve. And also, we are a tiny home village developer. We have been doing so for 10 years. And so we are happy to answer any questions you might have about that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Carmichael. Anyone else in Zoom space?
Yes, this is Philip Wolf from Allen.
Mr. Wolf.
Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to comment. I mean, I've heard a lot of talk about affordable housing or subsidized housing. I mean, that's great for the people that need that. But I mean, let's think about the young people that are in the workforce, that are working hard, that are going to work 8, 10, 12 hours a day, right? I mean, they need to be able to find affordable lots, have reasonable permitting requirements so they can build a family home. And they can stay in they can have an affordable place through their own hard work here in Mason County. Um, that's the way I was, that's the way I was able to own a home was to buy a piece of property, to build a house that had a reasonable cost for the lot, reasonable cost for the building, and with easy access to permits. I mean, I've had pretty good interactions with community development, but that needs to be encouraged. Just common sense land use regulation, that encourages, first time homeowners or first time home builders. That's my comment.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Anyone else in Zoom space?
Is this the second? I did not see anyone here.
Anyone in the room? Closed public comment period. Question for the panel. You need 5 minutes. Thank you. Keep going. All right, we open it up for discussion. Lots to start. I have 2.5 pages of notes here. Thanks, guys. Thank you very much.
Where to start?
Well,
So we're on item 3, Roman numeral 4 in the agenda.
yes, PAC discussion. And I guess I would just frame it with this. We've discussed population coming in. We've discussed number of homes that are required. We acknowledge the tables are differing based upon the years, but the fundamental numbers are the same. And we have a distribution of homes that we need by economic thing. Those things have been approved in the past. And I would prefer, really, we should not be revisiting those tonight. We should be focusing on what does the housing element need, and probably the most critical piece for this evening is going to be the goals and policies in the back. Yeah, so you're smiling already, Jeff.
Okay, so correct me if I'm right, I'm going to go straight to goals and policies.
Well, I mean,
This is fine. I'm fine with it. See, one problem having, my understanding construction of documents is if you have your stated goal in the policies about coming under. Is that what people's understanding is? Hierarchy?
I typically, my experience has been there's an overarching policy and then there's goals with associated actions to go achieve that policy. But it's backwards here. That's fine. So we have a goal on top and we have policies or actions, go-dos that would, the objective is those actions, those policies would help achieve the goal.
Let's forget whether it's oriented right away. But take the concept that goal one's dealing with having enough land in it. Okay. My understanding correctly. It's continuous and adequate supply of residential land for meeting on cutting goals and what have it. Almost all these policies don't support that. The way I read it. I'm not saying the policies are not needed, they're needed somewhere in the process, say in the health element. But when it comes to how you set it, make sure you have enough land set aside, I don't see, at least these first 8 that I'm looking at here, do anything.
Number 2, actively create actively pursue job creation and economic diversification strategies to provide better paying jobs. That doesn't deal with that.
No,
It's important.
no, I agree.
Doesn't deal with that.
That's what I'm trying to say is I'm not belittling or saying that they're not important. Any of these policies are not important. What I'm trying to say is structurally this document, you know, my way of looking at it,
Hear you.
Which goal are you reading?
You guys speak
H1,
louder.
H2, H3.
A few volumes louder.
a few volumes of it, okay?
We're gonna struggle with this.
Yeah. The problem is always that you're debating or you're debating something with somebody else.
Careful a second. Is there a way to quickly arrange this room to where we hear better?
Let's,
I mean, what if we took all the chairs in that sort of back section and stuck them there? Would that help?
Probably.
Then move your chair. Go ahead and just move, if you're sort of,
I have two audience.
you're sort of, all of you that
Yeah.
can't really hear very well.
What goal were you reading?
Would move
What number in
right up
H1,
here.
H2,
That
or
might help.
H3 were you reading?
H1.
And what number, what goal were you reading?
I mean, goal H,
No.
goal H1. Anyway,
Our
but
tables look different.
I'll try.
I
again.
was reading number 2.
Number 2.
My issue as a commissioner is we're trying to create, in this element, they have a goal. And it's important to have adequate land area for, residential development and housing and all these kind of components. My issue is the policies that fall under it. Don't, at least this first 9 here, do not support, have anything to do with land capacity. And should be somewhere else in the element. Now, even going on to the next one on the next page, policy H1.9.
What number?
H1.9. Decent policy, but it doesn't address the goal of having more or maintaining a continuous amount of land for residential development.
Yeah.
Right. Mr. Chairman? I'd like to remind you all of, I don't remember whether it was Ms. Hodgson or Ms. Wyman.
It would be Laura.
Who's-
Hodgkin, the house.
Laura gave the housing. And a very important statement that she said in her presentation was, it's not the jurisdiction responsibility to fund this. That's not in our scope of work. Was she incorrect? So I mean, all of these things, all of these items are saying we've got to provide these things.
No, I'm not arguing the point about the items. In other words, policies 1.1 through 1.9 that I read so far.
What he's basically saying, and Jeff, I'm gonna jump in here. We got a house. And the foundation is insufficient to keep the house from falling down. The goal is the house. The policies is the foundation. The policies do not support the goal. The house is gonna collapse. Sound good?
Sounds good.
So goal 1 is, county will provide continuous and adequate supply of residential land to meet long-term housing. So this is about providing land. And we have a goal under that talks about partnering with low-income housing advocacy organizations to assist in the timely processing of applications. Really important thing to do that doesn't address land. His issue is the organization. That So, Jeff, yeah, the three goals, do you believe that the policies under the three goals can be moved around? And would they all fit under one of the three goals, or do you believe that we might need potentially a fourth goal?
To answer your question right this second, I don't know. I
Okay,
haven't thought it
fair
through
enough.
To
That's
that degree,
okay.
but I'm, as I understand as being a commissioner, I'm not trying to invent stuff. I'm trying to take what's being presented and say, okay, will it float? Or does it make sense? And I'm trying to point out here that the policies there, or goals that are listed, however you want to call it, but the policies listed here, at least so far under goal H1. H1. Yeah, H1 do not support that goal. And that the contractor or staff or somebody needs to look at this and restructure the document.
What about the original language that was there? The strike out. Is that more appropriate?
I'll read it. Okay, so the original language reads, Mason County will provide opportunities for housing that are within the financial means of all its residents, which will include meeting the social service needs and providing a reasonable opportunity to live and work in their community. I'll read it again. The original goal, H1, housing affordability. Mason County will provide opportunities for housing that are within the financial means of all residents, which include meeting the social service needs and providing a reasonable opportunity to live and work in their community. It doesn't talk land at all. It talks about providing affordable housing. But again, at all levels.
Yeah.
Within financial means, whether that's, you know, a few thousand or a few million, wherever somebody sits.
Yeah, forgetting debating different policies for a moment. Sure, that would be infinitely better.
So let me ask a different question then. And I'm looking at two people. I'm going to look at Ms. Marissa and I'm going to look at Mr. Jeff there. Do we believe we have an issue of not having enough land at this point? Within our UGAs under current zoning, do we generally believe we have adequately zoned land for the differing types of housing that we need to provide and densities, understanding that permanent supportive homing, emergency homes, that may yet be a separate topic, but for the rest?
Yes, with discussions with our director, indicated that we would have enough for this planning period and beyond, would have enough housing or enough land capacity for the housing that's required. Of course, we'll have those numbers updated, you know, when we come back with land use element, but
yeah,
yes, I do believe you would have the capacity for this planning period.
The reason I asked this question is that, obviously we've heard Ms. Rowan in here, our chief of community planning, speak over the last year that he generally believes that it is a go-to that our contract has to provide. There's a separate perspective. Mr. Carey, didn't you take a look at our UGA's zoning and the amounts of land currently zoned out there and find something similar?
Yeah, I took a layman's look at it, you know, meaning took the GIS system, looked at, banned down certain parcels, kind of outlined where there was development, no development within the UGAs. And it looks like to me, there's, at least for the current planning period, almost 2-to-1 capacity to put the amount of housing they want or they're forecasting within the UGAs themselves. So, at least from a layman's point of view, I mean, I didn't have the ability to take all the parcels and sum them up, but at least checking, and looking at broad areas of undeveloped areas, urban growth areas, it appeared there's more than enough capacity, given what zoning Allen had, what zoning Belfair had, and the Shelton UGA. As well as much as I could ascertain from the city of Shelton, which is a little bit more complicated because of downtown and things of that nature.
So yet to be verified. We will see the numbers in a separate meeting here in a couple of weeks from now. We believe land availability is generally okay. Emergency housing, current supportive housing, TBD, we got to work, to be determined, we got to work through that yet, but the rest, we believe, and again, we need to probably look real hard. And I just don't know on the density of some zoning to make sure that the, you know, if you will, the ability to build up, not out, is there to where we can have some of the denser apartment-like facilities. So I think
Allen and Belfair both have the density called out, as well as the ability to go up in the areas we're talking about. I don't remember on Shelton.
well, if I may, PAC, is what I think I'm hearing is go back to the original, well, maybe we need to look at the other two goals first, but it sounds like the original language in general is probably more adequate for the policies that are written below, and the policies, you know, they all have value to some degree. And I'm trying to be a little non-committal here when one, not all people.
I agree. I mean, the stuff that's that's been zoned, read out, stuff like that. I mean, I think it should be in continuation with the applying adequate land. I mean, because what they're striking is the same with their, you know, the counties to provide opportunities for housing within their financial means. So they're kind of removing the financial part of things and saying, we're kind of moving on to the land. At least that's how I'm taking it. So I mean, by including, you know, reinstating that and then re-including and adequate supply of residential land, it's saying that they're trying to do their best to that, not only financially to help support this, then they are also will work to make sure the land's available to support these.
Do any of the policies address land? I think I'm saying no.
No. Which
We may need to create policies on them.
I mean, if you want to big land, then, which is, you know, something you have to do, I think. Then we might have to.
That needs to be goal for
Right.
That's what it needs to be. Just separate it out.
Yeah.
And we're gonna have a table with already said, okay. With the exception of, we got a couple areas we got to do.
There's no bank line wrong.
Not massively. Not really, I think. you're
Let's,
presenting-
Mike, can we just put that one in the parking lot for now? And I say that only because we don't think that Jeff did a little private homework and he roughly sees 2-1 today. But is there more land? Well, theoretically, we could expand the UGA. Okay, we could create UGA, which was very briefly mentioned in passing. We could create greater housing density and zoning. But I really don't want to get into those topics tonight, only because, you know, we need to provide the analysis first to really understand where we're sitting. We allow everybody the opportunity to actually see real numbers as opposed to, if you will, some cursory studies. But the cursory studies, what I really like is we have a lot of experience doing this for a decade plus in Mason County. And they're going, we believe we're okay. And we have someone else with decades of experience in Mason County who's done an independent quick pass and has come up with very similar results. Feel pretty good. I guarantee.
Yeah, I did not look like Beautiful area, recharges, you know, extra steep slopes, wetlands, any of that kind of stuff, but generally. Good start.
Okay. It sounds like Abilene goal. Protection notes.
Sounds like that.
Policy. It sounds like that. Goal 1, H1, goal, housing affordability talks about land. We should go back to the original language. And then take the land and either add it to housing affordability, which it sounds like we ought to do, have goal 4, land. And take that land goal, and put it at the bottom and add some policies.
Question for staff, or if we're deciding this, if it's staff then taking this forward.
Who's gonna do the job? Of creating?
Well, I give your feedback to
Okay.
the consultants and they provide the revision as you're mentioning.
Okay, good. We start with feedback. Thank you.
I'm going to just take some notes here. Sort of what we're doing.
And really, all three of these tables, H1, H2, H3, they're all titled goals. So we don't, are any of them policies?
The policies are the subsets of the goals.
Yeah, where are they listed? Are they mixed in with them?
No, they're right there. So, roll down. Down. This looks different than what we know.
It's only different. I had a suggestion to make it into a table, 3 separate tables here.
All these are all these here are policies. They're not goals. This is policy H1-1, policy H1-2.
Here's the old.
Yeah. Policy H1-1.
Okay.
Policy H1-2.
Okay,
And those are subsets of the H1 goal.
okay.
Um, so if we go with, how do we want to move forward here? So, Jeff, did you see in goal 2, goal 3, did you see similar disconnects with regards to what was stated as a goal and what was the policy elements?
So, like, well, it's like development standards, we can argue about the different facets of it, but debate that, but as far as more or less supporting development standards, they seem more in line with them.
And then 3, you see any issues there as far as the goal, and then the policy being generally aligned to the goal.
Full to housing for all. Feels pretty good to policy 835. Then we start doing in the programs.
Okay, so.
See,
What I would suggest is we go goal by goal, policy by policy.
Okay.
Everybody's writing comments, I don't, guys. Don't like,
I think for me, I'm not gonna get too hung up on projections and numbers, you know, we can beat that horse dead. It doesn't matter, the projection based on the story, yeah, all that. Policy is important though, and for me, as I've said this in the past, the biggest policy objectives for me are to protect the critical habitat. So I want to, obviously, I want to encourage as much land use as possible that encourage affordable housing, whether it's tiny homes, you know, whatever that is, as long as they can connect to adequate septic systems. What I'd like to also see in here, as I mentioned before, is that some type of buffer that protects this critical habitat. So there's no septic systems with drain fields within this buffer zone, whether that's 200 yards, quarter mile, I don't know what that is, that do not allow drain fields that will leach water into these critical waterways. I don't know if that's part of our advisory board's task, but it seems like there should be some language in there to protect that. If we're talking about climate,
So,
waterways, all these things.
Yeah.
Those are important.
so we do have a critical areas ordinance and a shoreline master program that does elaborate on those specific things, that there has to be buffers and setbacks for development, whether it's septic systems, drain fields, the foundation of a building itself. So those things are already in place. And we will, as PAC, be looking at the critical areas ordinance later on in the process. So you'll get more of an idea of what the actual buffers are and whether we need to do any further work with what's already in place. So we do already have regulations in place for that. It's just, you know, once we get to that review stage, we'll have to decide if, you know, if we need to go further with those buffers.
Yeah.
I guess, if I could say anything about, you know, the policies that you're looking at, it would be to consider policies that will direct staff later on to amend the regulation. So, I mean, obviously, there's some in here, about partnering with low-income housing advocacy organizations. You know, our department, doesn't do so much of that, you know, that would be a different department or, you know, commissioners. But for the community development department, looking at, we have an encouraging mix of housing development types such as the townhomes, apartments, accessory dwelling units within UGAs and within the city of Shelton. You have regulating manufactured housing in the same manner as traditional stick-built housing, which in allowing all zones where single-family detached housing is allowed. I believe that's already in place. I'd have to check the UGAs. But for like the rural area of the county, we permit manufactured homes, just like stick-built homes. But there are definitely some policies in here that would direct us to look at our regulations and see how our land use regulations can change.
Overwhelmed mode, you're week 4, baby. Yeah.
It's not a lot
You
of
can come up with your term if you want.
Yeah.
Well, I think it comes down a lot, just more taking, getting more in depth. Doesn't taking into deeper as we start.
Brad, do you have any specific comments on it?
No,
I got some tough questions here. My questions on some of these policies is do they belong here at all? I think they're important. I mean, policy 8.1-2, actively pursue job creation, economic diversification strategies, provide better paying jobs, secure jobs, etc. Totally agree. That's a great thing that we can put in this into the economic development element. What I would think. We remove it from that. Next one, 8.1.3, support a continuum of housing and related services for homeless people. Totally agree with the first half of that sentence. You can just stand on. Support a continuum of housing for homeless or simply for people. But then it goes on, continuing housing may include development into housing first programs year-round shelters, sanctioned tent encampments, minimum provide adequate toilet facilities, garbage collection, access to public transportation, services sufficient enough to distribute units throughout the county, and tell another sentence. Great idea, but I think that's something that frankly should go into public health and let them work that program. The first sentence, first half, provide a continuum in housing, absolutely, but the rest, this seems out of place to me in housing. I agree. Then we have 8.4, support a continuing in housing related services for people with special needs, such as frail, elderly, mentally, physically disabled persons, and recovering some substance abusers. Agree. But don't we want to continue housing and services for all people? You know, and if we say, elderly, mentally and physically disabled, or recovering substance abusers, what about, there's a host of other disabilities out there. Yeah, I mean, again, it's providing housing, but do we allow specific groups, particularly over other groups? Right? It's not written that way yet. It's close. I would slightly revise 1.5 to say instead of read fully utilized, but allow for housing construction utilizing federal and state housing programs to meet the needs of low and moderate income households, especially these populations. One question here, moderate income. Typically, we have discussed low income as an AMI below 50% and moderates 50 to 80. So are we now moving into the 50 to 80 that you're going to see, in this case, publicly funded housing for?
No, it leaves it open.
It's actually said, as it originally reads, it says fully utilized for that.
Okay.
So I mean,
That's it.
yeah, I've softened it, but I'm wondering, I guess, Marissa, so as I have read many a bill in the House and the Senate, and many dealing with this topic and other similar topics of low income, at or near potentially houseless or houseless folks, and what do you do? How do we respond as a society? And there's a lot of them down there. We have talked up to really tonight about AMI 50% and below. And moderate really is 50 to 80%. Where are we? Do you know where we're headed?
Do I know where we're going?
Well, I mean, I guess, is there any feel within the greater planning community is, has the state sent out a one page, hey, this is where we think we're going, again, unknown at the state level, et cetera.
I don't have any feedback about that, but it might be something I can follow up with
Yeah,
Laura, if she has some.
why? I guess it would be helpful. I'm. Now the building, so I'll say this, one thing I struggle with is, we don't have any specific guidance from our commissioners. And watching their briefings and the meetings, there's, it's gonna be interesting and I had a discussion with one of the members of the public before the meeting. And he reminded me, remember, this is a 20-year plan. It's not a 2-year plan. So what may or may not be happening in the next 2 years, while critically important, this is a 20-year plan. And let's make sure we allow the flexibility in the plan for something that might occur, an opportunity that might surface in 10 years, or whatever that time period is. So I'm just wondering where we're going with this. Um, 1.6 pedestrian pathways, again, is this the place to put this? To link schools, recreational area, shopping, et cetera, or is that better in transportation?
So I'm gonna ask the question this way. Well, should we not just remand this back to SCJ and say, line these up?
If we don't give them guidance.
Well, come on.
I don't know what to do.
I mean, if you look at the words and look at the words, it's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
They do need some feedback from you. So, I mean, they can better align under a goal. I understand that, but I mean, going through the goals and talking about each one of them is more helpful than having them guess. So.
Okay. One problem I'm having is why can't SCJ start with taking the comp plan of 2016 and getting that, all the facets of that in this damn plan, and then start adding to the set. Because there's finer data and finer points and additional points made in that are no longer being made.
Well,
I personally, when somebody creates a product, I mean,
This is hard.
no.
That's a polite way of saying what you're saying.
No, there's a polite way of saying it. This is a pile of crap. And I've said this 10 years ago when they created this and had to go back at it. In other words, you're asking us to wordsmith this on the fly with 6 or 7 people, so to speak, live, while we're trying to figure out this. And supposedly we have the expert planners putting this together in a concept that is workable. And it's not workable. I mean, that's my observation. This is not a workable process. We could easily spend 6 hours grinding through this thing. Easy. And I don't think that's what any of us signed up for. And I don't think as volunteers, it sucks when you have somebody that's a paid contractor going through and creating this level of crap. I'll just leave it at that. I am not happy with it.
okay, well.
Why
What
is
do
it
you
that-
not like specifically about it? Do you not like that things were left out from the old plan?
First of all, we're not taking the work we've done in the past and putting it into the current.
Okay.
Number one. Number two. We start with the goal. First of all, we did our alignment with policies and goals back afterwards, but let's just say we got that figured out. Then the next thing is we can't seem to line up the policies with the goal. And yet, to me, if you look at the words and you just read the words, whether you agree with the policy or not, doesn't even matter. Just say, line it up. We shouldn't be having a script, one thing out of one and put in another. I think it's a pure waste of this commission's time, not to get a better finish line. And my objective is just remand this damn thing back to them and say, fix it. And get it more complete. Based on, comments for tonight.
Other opinions? I agree here. Bob?
Mr. Chair, would it be permissible for us to assist the content provider with our advice and guidance? We talk about all this stuff. Jeff here has been very animate and articulate as to his concern. We have to write things up and or have staff write things up so they can communicate to the content provider. And the content provider theoretically will be revising things, but they really don't have a good idea as to what in the heck we're thinking unless we tell them. Further, I'm sure that it would be somewhat difficult to have them hear what we're saying, but really, if you want to get this thing done on time, they need to talk to us as opposed to going through staff to them and have them come up with questions to go through staff and come back to us.
Eliminate the
There's
middleman.
there's plenty of whiteboards right there that we can write things down on.
Well, you want to start and then I'll do my comments?
I'm not asking for
Okay, so
response from staff. I'm talking to the chair.
Here are my thoughts. So, the contract is between the county and the contract. We are not county staff. So if we meet with the contractor direct and provide guidance, that potentially has the issue of, is that what the county wants to do? And I don't want, so someone would have to have a look, and I bring that up because in a discussion with our county administrator, he was very clear on that point. Somehow we got discussing the contractor, and was I talking to the contractor? No, I've never, the only discussions I've ever had with our contractor is here in a public meeting. That's it. And no direction was provided from my perspective without staff saying, yes, that's direction, if there wasn't. So that's one comment. I don't know how we engage directly with the contractor. Two is, I would love to just mark it up and provide it to staff or whoever to provide it to the contractor, but then it's not done in a public meeting, and therefore are we doing something without the visibility of the public along the way and the rules of the open and public meeting? I need the right person to answer that. I don't know that we can do that. We can't meet as.
Provided your revisions in writing before, which you can do. Before you did them for the economic development element, you gave all the members a due date to provide revisions of the draft to staff. Staff then sent that on to SVJ to make those revisions. Those revisions will come back. They will be posted for the public, provided for the public, and eventually they'll have to go for public hearings. So the public will still be able to see what you are providing for revisions. I don't expect everybody to have, it figured out at this first meeting. This is the initial go around, but if it's too hard to do something on the fly, then yes, revisions in writing would be the proper method.
Go ahead. Let me try and summarize, if I can catch what Mr. Wilkerson was saying there. I think what Bob was saying is something along the lines of, I'm going to put some timelines in here. I move that we table this topic for now, that we go back individually, we take the Word document, we redline it in track changes. We individually provide our track changes to Miss Mariah within 7 calendar days. And Miss Mariah takes all of those and sends them to the chair. The chair attempts to consolidate all of them, deconflict them, on his own. I mean, if someone else wants to do it, that's fine, okay? And then that will be sent back to Miss Mariah. Miss Mariah will send that red line consolidated, here it all is, to the members of the PAC, and simultaneously forward it to SCJ through whatever the appropriate staff means are.
Chairman? I should make a suggestion that we, instead of sending individual files, staff, can you make a SharePoint that we can check?
It's an open and public meeting.
Can't do it.
That's why it's like if everyone emails everything to me, it becomes the equivalent of a public meeting, because I'm getting input from all members. So to avoid that, it all goes through staff. And Mariah's the belly button, and her head's going up and down, so that's good. Okay, well, there've been a lot of learning over the last year, folks, okay? And it's all good, and we're working through this, and it's the process, it takes time. And we're trying to work through that, so I would love to, Brad, but no, that's not an opportunity with open and public meetings, so it's.
Yeah, that would be, making it incredibly
Well,
inefficient.
Noted.
That was my point.
And the other thing it makes it is with what I laid out is basically there's a trust of whoever that person is, it's Mr. Mike or Joel or whoever that takes everything and put it together. It's a one-time shot, and for the purpose of time, I said, and it goes to Mariah, who will send it to the other members of the PAC and the contractor simultaneously. So whoever consolidates this, the PAC members don't get a first pass on what consolidate looks like. You know, the way I stated it, we could have that stuff.
You're still gonna do the second.
Yeah.
I'll second the motion. So after the discussion.
Keep going. Discussion, folks. We have a first and a second.
That's
All
also.
in favor?
7 days.
I'm not calling for the motion yet, but I'm asking exactly the discussion.
Okay. Discussion.
Make sure it's hammered out.
Okay, so. The motion is to, within 7 calendar days, each PAC member takes the file that Mariah sent us in the packet, the Word version. In track changes, we redline it with our focus on the goals and the policies. We then deliver that by, whatever, close of business Tuesday, Monday, close of business Monday next week to Mariah. Mariah will then take all of those parts. At this point, I say send them to me, but if somebody else wants to do it, please speak up. Okay. And they will get consolidated. I guarantee you, if you ever does this, someone will say, but you didn't include my comment. Yep, that'll happen. Okay, and then, that will be turned in.
Welcome to representative government.
Yeah, it'll be turned in a few days. I'd like to think we could do that in 2 or 3. So by the end of next week, Mariah would have a revised red line of the packet that she sent out, that he could then send to the PAC members, make available to the public, and send to appropriate staff channels to the contractor as guidance.
Call for the question?
All the question. Any other discussion?
They call for the question.
Okay.
So now that he called for the question, you get to say, okay, all those in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. The gentleman by close of business Monday. And when do you define the close of business?
Our department, it closes at 4:30.
So by 4:30 Monday afternoon. If you sent nothing to Mariah, then your comments are nothing, okay? No, seriously,
You don't have comments.
yeah, you don't have comments, okay? Otherwise, red line what we have, send it to Mariah, just package them up Tuesday, get sent. And just, I'll respond saying got it or something, and I'd like to think in a couple, 2-3 days, I can do something with it, but I don't know the scope of what the effort is yet, so figure that out.
And I'll send the Word version again, just so you have it.
That'll be great. You can probably do that when you're sitting there. Yeah.
Working on it.
So gentlemen, you'll see an email literally at the top of the desk.
One question,
Yeah.
kind of frames the mind and how these policies are, influences a little bit. And this is for staff. With HOAs, especially ones that are fairly restricted, like Lakeland Village. How do these play into it? I mean, like in the regulation side. In other words, where it specifies certain things you want to put into UGAs. If they're calling out, they don't accept those kind of things, how's that approach?
Who has preference?
Well, I mean, we always tell people when they call that we have our regulations, but the HOAs may have something more restrictive.
And I'm not saying it does, but for example, if Lakeland Village had property, but in their HOAs, it doesn't allow tiny homes. I'm not saying it does, it doesn't. But if they had something to that effect, within, you kind of can enforce them, but
We don't have any say over it.
legal staff.
Jeff, you bring up a great point. Let's look at two specific examples. Lake Cushman allows on STR platforms, people to rent out their property with tents. Now, a tent is technically not an STR, but they use STR platforms. So what does that mean potentially in STR space? What happens if we ultimately an ordinance is passed by the county, which right now is aligning to what the state is writing in bills that would allow up to 2 ADUs on any parcel of land and potentially 2 basically RVs on any parcel of land that would hook into utilities. And the purpose of that is for affordable housing and helping our people. And what happens when you have an HOA that says no? Is that HOA then considered basically non-participating in society? And could there be a legal lawsuit against an HOA for an existing position they've had from their inception? And I can't answer, I don't expect an answer here tonight, but those are the types of concerns of when we start to do things and when it's surfaced in STR space and surfacing again in this space where an HOA that's been in existence and their covenants, I'm going to say, are appropriate. And what I mean by that is it's not race, it's not gender, it's not religion, it's all those things that we don't. But if we say, for example, in my HOA, homes are a minimum of 12 to 1,400 square feet. That's our standard. That's what it's been for the past 30 years. And now someone says, but I want to build a container. Is that allowed? And when the HOA says no, can they then be taken to court by not supporting affordable housing? I'm glad I don't own an HOA.
I just brought that up so that.
I'm a member of one, yeah, and I could be sued.
But basically, at least from one standpoint is, we kind of have specs, but it can't. If a HOA is more restricted in that sense, as example, with the HOA would rule.
All right,
Okay.
gentlemen, if I may, I'm going to ask that we close housing and move on to bylaws. If that is acceptable to you.
I'm having a little funny.
All right, let's take 5 minutes. We'll be back here at 25 after. We'll use the clock on the left. All right, folks, we're at 25 after. Mr. Brad, if you would come back into the room, please. We still have next topic is bylaws.
Yeah.
Yes.
So do you have the current version, can I throw it up on the screen?
Can someone throw the edited version up on the screen? Ms. Mariah can do that. So I would ask the PAC members first, have you reviewed the draft?
Yes.
And
Yes.
I'm just gonna run around the room and say, do you have any suggestions to the draft bylaws?
Yes,
Mr. Perry?
but I gotta find the person.
All right, so I'm gonna start, Mr. Joel, do you have any suggested changes to the draft bylaws?
Oh.
Hi. Bob,
Yes, I do.
okay, what's your change, what's your suggestion?
Well, my motion is to add a new section called Rules of Order. And the text would be, commission proceedings will be conducted using Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised as a guide, except where this would contradict with the bylaws or other special rules adopted by the Planning Advisory Commission, which then takes precedence. All issues will be decided by simple majority vote. There's the text.
Commission proceedings will be conducted using Robert's Rules of Order and will be revised to guide except where this would be contradicted by the bylaws or other special rules adopted by the PAC, which is then takes precedence.
Oh, by the way, we need to, before we do that, before we even do that, we gotta bring this back. We had tabled this.
Okay.
So I move that we untable the bylaws revisions.
I'll second the.
All in favor of untabling the bylaws? It is untabled.
Okay, good now. We're a little discombobulated, but the motion's still,
First time.
the motion's still on the table now.
Okay.
Of the new section.
So the motion is to add a rules of order section as stated.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passes. So that's where that goes.
Okay, so.
Will you send that to me?
Other recommendation?
Oh, can you send that to me?
I need that specific.
Yeah, perfect.
You have any other-
Go ahead.
Okay.
I know I have two, but one I'll go to. This one on a conflict of interest, where it's highlighted in yellow. I really think that. You know, first of all, I have no problem with the concept of somebody has a conflict of interest that they can participate in the discussion. But what I do have a problem is regardless of whether there's a financial outcome or not. 1, 2, or 3 I don't think should apply. In other words, we shouldn't have impact as part of our bylaws. In other words, I would strike 1, 2, and 3.
So should we have a meeting, have 4 members present? One say, I have a conflict, then you have 3 voting members.
Which should be tabled to the next meeting.
Okay with that.
That would be next.
All right, so.
So my motion would be to, under the section of conflict of interest, second paragraph. Strike. The unless. That portion 1, 2, and 3.
So as Mariah, excuse me, outlines up here. The words unless in financial interest, you're recommending to be removed.
Yeah.
And leave this first as a standalone sentence.
Yes.
You hear a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
That was the first one. Yeah. I'm trying to find the other one.
You look, Brad, having reviewed the draft, these are draft bylaws that Mariah sent out. Do you have any recommended changes, or are you okay with them as is?
Nope, no changes.
Joel, how are you gonna- No pressure.
So is, okay, so this is a question first. my understanding is that when you have a forum, if you have a forum, then obviously don't discuss things other than public meeting.
I don't have a, you're right.
But I'm saying you're not discuss anything outside this, you know, like.
I mean, basically, I would not invite you and Bob and Michael to
Right,
the house.
right.
For the burger one, because the four of us are present,
Yes.
and even if we discuss nothing.
No, I
It's
get
just
the
a wrong
appearance.
perception, absolutely.
So this is a question, staff, somewhere in here, and maybe I'm just not seeing it because it's dark, and my eyes are going finally, but, I understand the concept of not discussing it, you know, like when zoning things come before us, not discussing it, general, you know, in general. But like when we discuss things, broad things like, you know, comprehensive plans, is it not okay from that, at least a member to member, one, just, you know, discuss and run things against you to check each other's thoughts and different things like that? Would that still be permissible?
As long as you're not deciding anything and you're not taking it to other members, so you're not daisy chaining it.
Right.
So if you just said
Not a
it,
serial
and then you come to the next meeting and said, hey, we talked about this. We're in agreement, what does everybody else think? Fine. But don't talk about it and then go talk to somebody else who talks to somebody else.
Right, no, like a serial meeting, no serial meeting.
Well, and a phone call, an in-person
Oh, yeah.
discussion, an email,
Yeah.
a text, all of those communications. You know, if I'm contacting three or more of you on the same topic, regardless of communication avenues,
And this,
that's daisy chain.
I would say for public records as well, if somebody were to request a public record, it has to be within the business of Mason County, or in your case, the business of PAC. So if you have a text with one other person that says, hope you're doing well because I heard you were sick, or something like that. That wouldn't necessarily be a public record because it's not related to the planning commission, but anything that you were saying related to, hey, we have a meeting Monday, that would be public.
Yeah.
So that also kind of goes into the, when you're talking one-on-one, anything possibly related to that.
Don't worry about it, because,
we can always come back to it,
I
but
always bring it up, get it on the agenda.
yeah. I'll leave it at that. At least it's been explained. So there was something that seemed like a little bit of conflict with that, but I can't find it right now, but.
It definitely is a little bit more complicated when you're talking about bigger things like the comprehensive plan versus a rezone where you know you're not gonna go talk to the property owner and say, no, give me money or else I'm gonna have to. You know you're not gonna do that.
Right, no, but things like this bigger things like comp plan and things like that, they're. Okay, thank you.
I thought at one point we had a different section that we added about not engaging with the public.
No, we have a public comment section, and we talk about public comments both verbally and written. And we give timeframes to provide, we provide. I don't believe, yeah, we do say 3 minutes per person, okay, and that's for the open public comment, for the public comment on a specific topic, and we talk and request that written comments be provided, and we ask, you know, by close of business Thursday to staff, so we can get them first thing Friday to review. We discussed briefly about having a limit on the number of pages, just from the ability, if someone drops 100 pages on us on Friday, the idea that we're gonna get through it by Monday, the PAC said no, but at the same time, we said no, don't put the limit, because if you do, then that is potentially violating Article 1 of the Constitution, because you're limiting someone's ability to have freedom of speech. So that was removed. Written comment is as long as people If somebody wants to put it together and forward it, send it to us and test that. We get 100 pages on Friday, digesting it by Monday, we'll have it.
And you're more than, well, welcome to say at the meeting, you gave me 100 pages, I didn't get it.
And I was speaking for direct comment from the public.
Oh.
Questions to us, like we encountered one time.
Yeah,
maybe back and.
we didn't put it in the bylaws, because it's not allowed. What we were doing is following MRSC's guidance to allow for public comments. You know, within the guidance, there is standards within the county, but don't engage the public. And a lot of that is, it's multifold, because if you engage, recognize that, you know, it's like fantastic discussion tonight. And we heard a lot of differing and opposing views, but not every position was represented. And so if we really wanted to have that broader discussion, should we actually set up a special meeting at a separate time, broadcast it to the community so all interested parties could come and present their perspectives, as opposed to limiting it to those who got. Anything else? Yes, sir.
I actually want to retract what I said. When I said I don't have any problems, because I do have a big problem with paragraph 2 of section 2.
Okay.
PAC members are expected to attend all regular scheduled meetings in person. And quite honestly, I had more difficulty hearing people speak in this meeting in person than I did on the virtual meeting. And I don't want to have to come down here. I didn't sign up for coming volunteer. And I can stay in my home office where I have 2 screens. And so I think we should change that second paragraph. Expect to attend all regular scheduled meetings in person. Virtual I think I would say change that to regardless of whether virtual meeting, PAC members are expected to attend all meetings, all regularly scheduled meetings. Delete the word in person.
Any other discussion?
And actually, I guess
Are you moving to delete those words?
So what I think I'm hearing is
Yeah.
a motion to remove
2 words.
to
We have to modify the back end of it too, because it says here that you have to notify the chairman and secretary if your schedule is missing or attend virtual.
so just okay, so we have a motion on the floor to remove those words to allow to not require in-person attendance, that virtual attendance is acceptable. Do I hear a second? All in favor?
All right.
All opposed?
Nay.
Motion fails. Okay. Is any other PAC member, any other recommended changes, bylaws? As currently drafted.
Excuse me?
Does any PAC member have any other recommended suggestions to change the bylaws as presented? So we have the original bylaws that were sent to us here last week. We have made 2 modifications, one adding a rules of order section and one. What did we do?
Removing
removing some of the elements on the conflict of interest. Exceptions. And are there any other suggested changes to this one? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve these bylaws as drafted?
So moved.
Do I hear a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. that closes out bylaws.
Next meeting,
Yeah.
end of the agenda.
No, actually, number five.
I added my, unfortunately, I added meeting frequency, so, last week, I met with, Kel Rowan and Melissa Watson to discuss to organize our thoughts and try and make this go effectively, that's the purpose of getting together. And it's a tool, Kel has used in the past, it sounded well, so, I'm talking about. One of the discussion points was meeting frequency and duration, given that it is now 8:46 at night and it started 2 hours and 46 minutes ago. It's very timely. But basically, what my question to you is, what should our target duration not to exceed frequency of PAC meetings be? Okay, and what I want to ensure is that number one, we can meet our civic duty, help and support the public. But I also want to be respectful of staff time, of citizen time, and of your time. Okay? And that's not only to attend the meetings, but particularly for the board members to prepare for the meetings. Because I don't know about you guys, I'm spending more than a couple hours preparing for meetings. Okay? And then based on the comments, so I attended a BOCC meeting on the 11th of March, and there was a discussion on the comp plan there, what was involved, and very much that the comp plan and elements of the comp plan will continue to come to us very much through the year. I heard that while no date was stated, what I walked away with was a feeling that we will be still dealing with this come Thanksgiving. Okay, it's going to be some time yet. And while we may not maintain what is, currently an every other week pace, at one point I said, hey, given the pace, maybe it's weekly. And I'll be quite frank, staff looked at me and said, overwhelming. The preparation, the notifications, the coordination, everything that's involved, much less expecting us to prepare for that. And so what I sort of tossed out is, as discussion points, desire a maximum of 3 hours per meeting, or a max duration of 3 hours with a target of 2 hours per meeting. Frequency, 2 a month, or basically every other week, depends on how, if you have a 5-week Monday month, maybe you got 3 that month, or 2 next.
So you're saying we have a regular meeting and a special meeting?
Unless something change, I mean, we're already penciled in through May. Like
Oh, I know.
And I don't think when we get to May, given what we're seeing, it's gonna back off. That's my opinion.
It'll probably back off a little. Yeah, just.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so,
But I expect it won't be every other week all the time, because it's every other week right now because we're getting an element here and there. But then, they're gonna take your suggested revisions, apply it to, and give you a full draft. So they're gonna need a longer amount of time in between those revisions and getting it back to you. So I don't project that we're gonna have every other for the rest of the year.
so if we sort of go with a couple meetings a month, preferably 2, but no more than 3 hours. So, and no back-to-back meetings, or week to week back-to-back. This also would, at least in the near term, likely prevent us from bringing in additional speakers. I've had at least 2 PAC members come to me and say, I'd really like to bring, just like we did here a couple of weeks ago, other speakers in. Okay, so that's a couple of you all that have done that. So I just want to lay that out and say, what do you think? Right? That's fine. You get to my left? Go yeah. It's just very good. Says go around the room. So it's my notes.
I can do a couple extra meetings, like spring and early summer, maybe, but hopefully it can end pretty quickly.
Okay.
Back to one.
Okay. So you're sort of looking at this as an upper end.
Yeah, I signed on for one a month,
Okay.
so it's an upper end.
100% won't be there now.
Are you saying you're surprised?
No,
Joel, on the other hand, with 1 month in, is going, oh, this is ops normal.
Well, I thought it was once a month too, and that's what I signed up for, so. Yeah, I mean. I'm human, that's.
Yeah,
So, you know, stuff like that, I know, like, so this regular scheduled meetings are month, you know, to be there. I mean, and maybe we'll be to, special session. Makes it more accessible for me in some days. Coach baseball. About 500 other things, amongst my job, so. I said especially more access to Zoom. I mean, I do my best to be there every time, but I'm not making it go. It's still coming to you. Like I said, I came in expecting one week, you know, one Monday month. I realized quick that that's not the expectation. I mean,
Was that way till about
the rule of the thing, but
9 months ago, 6 to 9 months ago, so.
9 months ago, what?
6 to 9 months ago, it became more frequent than 1 month. So, right, Brad, thoughts?
What?
Thoughts on frequency of meeting and duration?
I just couldn't hear you better.
the only thought I have is a kind of compromise for those that really have, you know, struggle to get here. Okay, fine, hit one, hit the schedule that you said, and then the extra meeting, just zoom in.
Yeah.
Because.
Well,
And basically.
remember what we just passed.
Yeah, no, I understand, but I understand, but I'm just saying. We have to do some give and take like too.
Yeah.
And
Well, that's why there's weasel words in there about
Why I'm bringing this up very openly to say, what do you think? I want to do it in front of you know, in front of staff, because they're directly impacted by what we said.
Two, especially like this, like what the housing was. And the stuff I ran into it. Two is max.
There's a lot of problems.
Right, and. I mean, you know, if you don't. Because see, my land should have been figured out before housing. Okay,
I'm challenged at the time.
I know.
Making the assumption land.
But what I'm trying to say is that forced me then to have to go do my legwork.
Yeah.
And that became more time. You know, so, and yes, I'm glad, you know, it worked out, but yes, 2, and I'd like to keep it to 2 hours, but if, you know, there are gonna be some of these.
On that note of hours, Bob, I think I know what you're thinking.
we can always. Make a motion to limit the total time and say we're gonna get where we will be done. At 8 o'clock or 8:30 or whatever. Okay. And that will force us a hard stop.
Well, there's the other thing too. We can also make the motion to hit, you can be in mid-flight.
Right.
And you can say, hey, at this point, you know, we're gonna table this and we can, you know, we convene this meeting the next. Whatever is permissible.
Well, I'll say, on process there, you don't have to motion to end it. But you can put a hard stop time, you can decide that, and we can add it to the agenda that says we're not going past 3 hours or 2 hours. Set a timer, and when it goes off, the meeting's done. You don't have to do that, but you can.
Okay. Well, we'll see how this goes. We can maybe we'll have our conversation later on about. Well, if you get the people. So.
Moving, we are gonna have some long public comment periods. Climate change is gonna be significant, that's my expectation, just like I thought tonight would be the place. And so moving forward, we'll put a hard stop, not later than 9 o'clock. We'll target and Ryan, Marissa, let's work together outside the meeting, following Brad's idea from a previous meeting of times against every item. And let's see how we can work on that. We'll clean that up a little bit. But we'll really try and target a 2-hour meeting. but if we get an hour of public comment, we're not gonna cut it, not on a topic. I don't, can we cut it?
We can't.
Because that's not the advice I'm hearing, and I am very concerned about,
Not a workshop.
yeah, I'm concerned about. I mean, are we stepping on someone's first amendment rights?
I don't wanna go through, the other side is, I don't wanna go through what we went through and what I saw the county go through in the early 2000s. Which is,
later.
well, not only that, there's those, but it ended up getting sued.
Yeah.
And then it came back, had to revisit the whole damn thing again.
Well,
Yeah, that's just my opinion.
Oh, you lived the experience, right?
yeah, no, it's,
And I wasn't even, I was more of a guest.
Yeah, but you were there.
so. I will work with staff. Trying to use a couple hours. But some of
You'll be
them,
happy meeting in there somewhere.
yeah. There has to be. There's a couple coming up that I think are gonna be very complicated. We'll figure those out. So we'll do that. Anything else, PAC members? Staff? If I hear a motion to adjourn,
I'll make a motion.
second, all in favor?
Aye.
We're done. Thank you.
Thank you all.
And, okay, thank you.